Good evening, everyone. We'll get started in just a minute. But thank you so much for being here with us this evening. If you're here for the public comment meeting on the Pacifica six-cycle housing element, targeted general plan amendments, rezoning, and objective development standards program, you are in the right place. So I'm just going to give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Okay, well, good evening, and thank you for being here with us tonight for this public comment opportunity for the City of Pacifica's draft environmental impact report for the city's six-cycle housing element, targeted general plan amendments, rezoning, and objective development standards program. My name is Allison Moore. I'm an associate principal at Diet Bhatia, the consulting firm that is assisting the city with the environmental review process. And I am here with my colleague, Claire Kucera. City staff are also in the audience listening in so that they have full context for your comments. Oops. I'll share tonight just a very brief overview about the background, purpose, and process of the EIR, or Environmental Impact Report. But the main purpose of this meeting is to hear from you and receive public comments to be addressed after the public comment period closes. This meeting is being recorded and transcribed so that we can capture your comments word for word. During the public comment period, the city collects these public comments from the public, agencies, and other entities, and then evaluates these comments on environmental issues, and then prepares a written response. We'll be doing the same for comments that you submit to us tonight. So at the end of the presentation, when the public comment period open, or when the designated time for comments open rather, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. If you are calling in on a phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. So just a little bit of background, Pacifica's six-cycle housing element for the 2023 through 2031 period is the city's plan for addressing Pacifica's housing needs over the next 8 years. The program analyzed in this EIR represents the general plan amendments, rezoning, and objective development standards program, that is housing element program, implementing program 1, that Pacifica must undertake to meet its regional housing need allocation, or RHNA, which is a requirement from the state. The purpose of the environmental impact report is to inform the public and decision makers of the potentially significant environmental impacts from the program, identify ways to minimize those effects, and describe reasonable alternatives to these projects. And then the public comment period for the draft EIR, you'll see this a few times, started on December 13th and will end at the behest of City Council on February 3rd, 2025, with comments due at 5 p.m. And I'll show you all of the ways that you can provide comments in just a few slides. So we've talked about the purpose of the environmental impact report here, but I also just want to note that this is a programmatic environmental impact report. That means because we don't know the exact details of what an actual construction level project might look like on some of the housing element sites, that's why it's programmatic, meaning it considers environmental impacts of a broader program or plan that includes those multiple related actions. And then once a project is proposed, it's then evaluated to see if it falls within the scope of the program EIR, and if not, a subsequent EIR, a supplement to the EIR, or mitigated negative declaration would be prepared unless the project is exempt from additional environmental view under other provisions of state law. Oops. So the draft EIR evaluates all the required CEQA categories that must be evaluated as shown here. Those are included as separate sections. And then this flow chart provides an overview of the process. So the release of the NOP, the notice of preparation, alerted the public and agencies that the city will be conducting the EIR. The team then had 30 days to receive any potential comments on the scoping, and then released the draft EIR for public comment in December. And now we are in the public comment period that will end on February 3rd, 2025. And during that public comment period, agencies and members of the public can submit public comment letters or, comments at this meeting on environmental issues. We are obligated to prepare written responses to comments. Those written responses combined with the draft EIR constitutes what's known as the final environmental impact report. That will then be circulated to commenters for 10 days. And then after that, we will move into hearings where decision makers will consider certification of the final EIR. Oops, there are many ways to give public comment during this period. As I mentioned, you can do so here at this evening's meeting. You can email your comments to the email addresses shown below, or you could submit your comments by mail. Comments must be received by 5 p.m. February 3rd, 2025. So now we are moving into the public comment period. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And then please note, while we can answer general questions about the draft environmental impact report organization or, the process, we want to treat the comments that you give us with the same level of care and attention to detail as we would be providing in our written comments. So any substantive responses to the comments that you provide this evening, we will do so in a written response after the close of the public comment period. So included as part of that FEIR responses to comment. When you're giving your comment, we ask that you please state your name and the environmental issue or issues that you are commenting on. So with that, I do want to open the comment period for anyone who may have comments now. Please raise your hand and I will try to call on you in the order that I see your hands.
How do we raise our hand? Chat?
Yes, so there should be an icon at the bottom of your screen, but Kirk, why don't you get us started?
Thank you. My name is Kirk Miller. I'm an architect, and I'm representing the design of preliminary design of 3 different projects. One is on site 38, one is site I, and White and site J. They're on highway number 1 between Fassler and Rena Del Mar, the Lutheran Church, and the property to the northwest of the Lutheran Church. Is recommended rezoning to R60. It was 60 MU and 60 with an I for institutional. Two I'm involved with are just being downzoned to R60 as opposed to mixed use. The problem I'm having, however, is not that changing the designation, but it is with the height limit. The original height limit was recommended to be 65 feet for R60. That's been downgraded to 55 feet. However, R50 is also 55 feet. And during the Planning Commission's discussions, one very esteemed member of the commission said that she had talked with architects, and the conclusion was if you wanted to add 10 units per acre to the density, you needed to increase the story height by 1 level. So I'm perplexed that it's, and the other comment was by Christian Murdoch was that they had to make sure that the envelope would allow the densities that were in the housing element could be met. And therefore 60 units per acre is 20% more than 50 units per acre. the decision to drop the height from 65 feet to 55 feet was made at about midnight. Everyone was wiped out, and I stayed until they made the announcement they were only going to go to R40, and they were going to do R50 and 60 later on, but they decided after I left to continue and couldn't do anything because it was public comment was closed. So I respectfully ask that you all look at in the R60s, putting the height back up to 65 feet instead of 55 feet so that the density can be met. One thing did not come up in that hearing, and that was allowance for parking. And when you're doing a density of this type, you typically have to use density in the building, and it takes one level of parking to support two levels of living. So if you're doing a 4-story of living, you need two levels of parking. That gets you 6 stories. That gets you up to 65 feet because 10 feet per story is not quite enough. The other thing is that also in all the R60s, the setbacks for the upper stories have to match that of of downtown, what they want it to be downtown, West Sharp Park. And that those setbacks are very, very important in that urban context. However, the particular projects I'm working on are isolated. They're on their own little valley. They have no neighbors. They don't have uphill. They have a hill uphill. They don't have any of those urban constraints to deal with. Therefore, those setbacks are rather arbitrary and would terribly affect the cost and the layout and so forth of the project. So those are my comments. And I will put these all in writing, of course, and I could even, I'll probably even put in some sections. So the other thing is not taken into account in this height limits is right now Pacific's height limit is measured from the lowest point on the site. If you're an uphill site, they take it at street level. So if you have a steep uphill site, your height limit is really, really cut off. Most jurisdictions take the midpoint of the lot. So those are my comments in a nutshell, and I appreciate you taking the time to hear from me. And as I mentioned to you, I'll put this all in writing and let us take its course. So thank you.
Thank you, Kirk. Any other comments related to environmental issues?
Kirk Miller again.
Kirk, just give me 1 second to see if anyone else might want to raise their hand. If you want to use the chat, you can also put comments in the chat, and I'm not sure if the raise the hand function isn't working right now.
It's not for me.
Okay. All right, well, if you would like to speak, please put your name in the chat so I can keep comments in order. Seeing none at this time. So Kirk, do you want to talk about your environmental issues?
Yes, my concerns with regards to transportation. I haven't read the whole section on transportation thoroughly. I've just scanned it. But my basic question is, isn't it, first of all, make a statement. So the state is now demanding these very large increases in density of urban areas. And on the other hand, if one does a full EIR on the traffic, it's going to come out very, very negative, particularly in some place like Pacifica with Highway 1. That's the main concern has come up in Pacifica, is the traffic on Highway 1. And where we exit and come up and get off onto and off of Highway 1 from our project has no impact on any neighboring streets, just on Highway 1. But my question is, after this EIR and it's looking at transportation, and if one is meeting the objective development standards that are laid out in the EIR, must one do a traffic study? That's a question. I don't know the answer.
We will address those comments in our response to you, Kirk. Thanks. If anyone else would like to speak, please go ahead at this time.
Allison, this is not a comment, but I just noticed that a third planning commissioner has joined the view, and now that we have a six-person planning commission, I'd like staff to comment as to whether one of us needs to leave the meeting.
Mm.
Can someone from staff please weigh in?
Hi, this is Samantha Updegrave. I will look into that and follow up shortly.
You know what, Samantha, then for avoidance of doubt, because we've been doing everything very thoughtfully, what I'll do is I'll jump off right now, and then I just ask that Commissioners Redfield and Berman pay attention to the attendee list.
Oh, thank you, Chair Hauser. I'll also double check so that I have an answer.
Thank
Chair
you. Bye-bye.
Hauser,
Oh, yep. Yep.
this is Commissioner Berman. I would much prefer for you to stay on, and I am happy to jump off. I'm also taking care of a 1.5-year-old right now. So, and I'll jump off and you guys could reach out to me if it's determined I could jump back on, but I'd much prefer
Okay.
you to stay on, especially as chair.
Oh, thanks, Lauren. Okay. All right. I'll stay on. Bye, guys.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Thank you, commissioners. Any other members of the public who wishes to submit a comment on environmental issues? And I think the raise hand may be in when you click react, actually. Matthew, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I had a question. It might not be a comment, but are you guys worried at all about any of the land down by Pacifica State Beach with like water levels rising, like even though it's really slow, but just like the outlook of that um, in like the long-term future, just as far as property condition goes?
Matthew, so this environmental impact report analyzes topics as required by CEQA. So I do encourage you to perhaps check out the hydrology section for environmental impacts related to that.
Thank you.
Any other issues? And again, please forgive me about the hand raising issue. I think if you click react, oh yes, there we go. If you look on the toolbar at the bottom of your screen and you click the react with a heart, Zoom just keeps changing on me. There is an option to raise hand, and that way I can see your raised hand. Any other issues, any other comments that people would like to raise? Any questions about the EIR process? Okay, well, if we're ruminating on it, I'm happy to leave this open for, a few more minutes. You can also feel free to put any comments in the chat if you'd prefer. Okay, so I think if there are no additional public comments on environmental issues resulting from implementation of the housing element program, I may end this recording early at 6:30. But I'll plan on being on the line if you have any additional questions or comments on the EIR. So we might end this at a little early. Okay, give you your evening back. All right, I did get a question in the chat about the comments deadline. So I'm going to pull up the presentation again. The deadline for public comments has been extended. Oops. To February 3rd. And I'm just going to share my screen again. So yes, it's oral comments at this meeting, which will be transcribed, written comments after this meeting by mail or by email. The email address to submit your comments is shown below. And again, that end of public comment period is February 3rd. Okay, so in about 3 minutes, we'll close this meeting if there are no additional comments. This meeting is being recorded and all comments will be transcribed. Okay, we did get a question in the chat about consultation with members of tribes. So as part of this EIR, we did follow all required state laws related to tribal consultation. That process is documented in the Cultural and Tribal Resources chapter of the EIR. Thanks for the question. Okay, just one more minute. Any last words, any last comments from people before we close? Thank you all so much for being here. We really appreciate you taking time out of your evening to attend this meeting. Thank you all to those who provided comments and questions. This meeting will be posted on the website, and please keep a lookout in the days to come after the public comment period closes. We'll be on the lookout for your comments as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.